Hi, in this video I'm going to show you the basic database functionality of the SeedTree database app hybrid system. So here I've burrowed into the branches to get to the example function that we'll be playing with for the rest of this demo. And then I try my first input for the example, which is a string. And then example's schema says, oh, sorry, I only accept a number. So I try again, now not with a string, but with a number, and indeed it works. And the output shows the number as well as the calculations that were applied to it, as well as some additional information, key values. Next, I use one of the kernel functions, which stands for thesis, antithesis, synthesis. So it's called syn. And I give it two key values. The first one is cell, which if we look at example 2 has a null value for it. And then the second one is hello, which has a pre-existing earth value to it. Now when I try to put these two key values in to the second example's output object, the first one works because there is an empty cell it can go into, but the second one doesn't work because the cell already has a value. Now I try to use syn again, but I give it a key value that doesn't exist at all in the example's second output's object. And so since it doesn't have any place to go, it also won't work. In other words, by default, the only synthesis that will succeed is one where there is a null value available. But if we put in some options, the first option means that a new entry can be added, even if there's not a null. And the second option now that I'm hitting will override a value that pre-exists. So we don't get an error anymore from the database. Next, I put in another successful input to example, which is a number, and then I look it up. I try to look up an output that has yet to be created, so it doesn't show it. And then I look up our old output that we were modifying with the syn function from the kernel, which is proprietary. Now I look up the example function itself and I see it has two key values, hello world, as well as x. I change x to another number, so it's not 4 anymore, it's 7. And then I try an example input with this new x value. So number plus x, that key value there, is now 9 plus 7, not 9 plus 4 as it was, or it would have been before. Here I'm taking an SMS text and I'm sending it to the database with another branch that uses Twilio's SMS programmable service. And then that service sees it's a number and sends it to our example. And then the example takes it like any other input and makes its output, which is the fifth output, using the x that we updated before. So it's 21 plus 7, not 21 plus 4. Okay, so now I look up the metadata or header of example, and this information is constructed by the kernel. And then I take the show key and give it a true value. So I turn on show, which means when I try my next input, the output will be part of example's key value. So here I'm trying the input, but I'm giving it a wrong schema. Despite that, when we look it up, we can see that the sixth output is shown here. And it doesn't do the calculations because it wasn't given a number, it was given a string. So now I'm looking up the constructor for example itself. The key value is an example. The constructor function, which is a JavaScript concept you can look up to see its logic. And of course I can also use this as a standalone function. I don't have to use it with example. Then I do the same for the logic instructions that make up each of the outputs. And finally, I do it for the instructions or calculations that example does, adding x to the number, etc. Thank you for watching the video.